So I'm now sat in the car park. 10 minutes ago, mate, I was a prison officer, firefighter, etc., and now I'm sat in a car with something to take into a prison and money that's going to fucking cost me a lot down the line. I'm not going to lie, mate. In the back of my mind, I knew it was all going to end in tears. But I was on a railroad at that point to fucking destruction. I remember somebody from one of the bigger ones in Manchester approached me and said, "Pretty much, we know exactly what you're doing on the wing. You're now going to work for us." I hated the job at that point, mate. I despised it. I was fucking disillusioned with life. I'd hated myself for doing what I was doing. I was just an absolute broken shell of a man. I knew I was going to jail. I knew I was fucked, but I just felt this element of I don't have any pressure anymore. Got a bit of a security problem. I said, "Go on then." He said, "Well, this paper, unfortunately, this morning has been distributed to every cell in the prison." And I looked at him and I went, "Sorry, what?" "Well, every prisoner in this jail now knows who you are."
Hi everyone, you're very welcome to this week's episode of the Parallel podcast. Please click like, subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos or updates. This week I'm delighted to be joined by former prison officer Lee Davies, who unfortunately ended up on the other side of the prison gate, and he's very kindly agreed to come on today and tell his story. Lee, thanks a million for coming on the show. It's great to have you here.
No problem, mate. Thank you for inviting me, mate, and your support coming up to this as well, leading up to this. It's much appreciated, pal. Glad to be here, mate.
No bother at all. I saw you first on the Real Porridge podcast with our mutual friend Sam, who's been on the show as well. And your story kind of captivated me. It was a difficult story at times to hear. We'll obviously touch on it later on in the interview, but how you came out of it and how you redeemed yourself and came out the other side of it was inspirational. So I'm hoping that other people who want to watch this will also be inspired by it. So a shout out to Sam, I suppose, for introducing me to you inadvertently through the podcast, and to Lee's story, who's got his own podcast or YouTube channel set up, Crime Stories with Mouch, which you're going to put the link in for as well in the video. He's been great in hooking us up as well, the group chat going and all that.
We both have, mate. Massive respect to them both. As I say, that was my first introduction to kind of podcasts and even talking about, what I'd done or my past. So massive respect to Sam for that. Lots of respect to Lee. He supported me a hell of a lot through it. And obviously he's hooked us up. He's like kind of the mutual, he's kind of the big link between me and yourself. So yeah, I hope they're both doing brilliant. Good lads.
Very good. You've spent a bit of time in Ireland before as well, which is nice to hear. Do you want to summarise that experience for us?
It was in Dublin actually. Probably talking maybe 21, maybe 3 years ago. I think I probably did, I'd say, about a year and a half in Dublin, working on a big site at Blanchardstown, for the Irish soccer team. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been up to Dublin, mate, and obviously some of your viewers will know there's a massive sports complex there just on the edge of Dublin, on the north side. And it's got like equestrian, gar, soccer, rugby, all under one roof in one big area. They've got the athletics there as well. I was working on the indoor kind of soccer area for the Irish soccer team. Mick McCarthy was in charge at that point. I used to see quite a lot of the boys training on the pitch opposite, which was quite nice. But yeah, loved my time in Ireland, mate. Dublin was brilliant. The people in Dublin are brilliant. The people in Ireland are brilliant. But yeah, loved it, mate. Loved it. Too much Guinness though.
Before we get stuck into your story, Lee's going to do our usual cheers, and in tribute, I suppose, to myself, you have an Irish ale.
Premium.
Yeah, I've only finished Marshall's mug. So cheers and good health to you, Lee, my man.
What else, mate?
Sláinte.
Sláinte. Yeah, mass.
So, we'll take it back to the start. Preston North End played a big role in your early life. Isn't that right? You were a promising footballer.
Yeah, looking back on it now, it is. At the time, mate, I didn't think it had a big effect on me. But when you look at it as a 40-year-old man, and you do a lot of assessment, as we'll get into the interview, there's been a hell of a lot of period of reflection, soul searching, understanding why maybe certain things have happened and how I've ended up on the road that I've ended up. And I think really, and I know it's going to sound, some people are going to listen to this and think, what are you talking about? But it's all about, I guess, a young person technically being stopped in their dream. And I think that has a big effect on young lads. And to what level, I'm only talking about my experience. I was a decent footballer, and it transpired throughout my secondary school age that I was a very good footballer, to the point of, actually getting on at Preston North End. We were there was me and two other lads, we were there for a while, going through their youth setup. And that was everything that a young man, I mean, listen, I had some really good opportunities growing up, and I know a lot of people are not sat in this position. They're probably thinking, bloody hellfire, is that the problems of your life, mate? But at the time, I was a young lad. Everything was going right for me. I had a really good upbringing, really supported people, family, opportunities. So everything was, you would say, perfect, really. And I'm very grateful for that, mate. But at the time, I'd never experienced the word no. So Preston North End came to me one evening, or shall I say, one of the kind of head youth directors, and said, we've got a new manager from Torquay coming into the setup. He's going to take over the youth development, and he's due next week. So he comes in next week. Literally, mate, we'd had probably about a week or two with him. He paid no attention to the lads that were there whatsoever. He brought his own lads in with him, and he pulled us all. I think it was 6 of us. He pulled us all and said, listen, I'm not interested in you. I'd like you to go and find other clubs. I'm bringing my own setup in, my own lads, and I'm doing it my way, kind of thing. Because back in that period, mate, nowadays, young footballers or youngsters are taken on, and they have to enroll in what you would call like a college course. The clubs have an onus on them to provide you with an after football. At least contribute to your education, give you a college course as well. So if you don't make it, because let's face it, not a lot of people do, at least then you've got something to fall back on. But I was kind of maybe 2 or 3 years before that coming in by the FA. So you were just chucked on the scrap heap and said, right, mate, go and find somewhere else. You're not welcome here anymore. Which, if you can imagine, to a young lad who's been told yes all his life, to then be faced with that. I mean, my family are not sporting, mate. They've not got a sporting background. So all they wanted to do was obviously console their son, make sure I was all right emotionally. But yeah, no, I took it hard. I took it wrong, mate. I didn't have the right attitude. What I should have done is gone and knocked on Blackpool's door the day after, or Burnley, or whoever. But I didn't, mate. I did what a young, immature man would do. Saw my arse with it. Kind of fucking vented my anger in other ways, because at that point I'd lived a fairly strict life. I didn't go out drinking. Everybody had started to find drinking, women, dare I say it, drugs, whatever. And I didn't. I was always fairly straight laced. So at that point, mate, I didn't know what to do in my life. So I kind of enrolled on a sports science course straight away after that. But really, my head had gone at that point, mate. I needed somebody to get hold of me and show me a bit of direction. I mean, this is me talking, looking at the young man, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. At that point, I mean, I was still loved. I still had a roof over my head. I was still fed. I still had lots of opportunity. But my dream, in my mind, had been taken away from me. Now, to a young man, you then start to manifest it in different ways. So I don't know, mate. I think that was a big point in my life. Forget all the stuff that we're then going to go and talk about. I think that was the first time that I'd experienced maybe negativity or a negative situation, and I dealt with it completely wrong. I just fucking went off on a tangent, thought, right, sod you, sod football. I've had enough of it anyway. So wrong thing to do, mate. If you said to me, is there a moment in your life that you could turn back to, it would be that moment, it'd be that day, to get back on the horse in the morning and go knock on Blackpool's door.
Yeah.
the lad who'd taken us to Preston had actually moved on to, at that point, and they were doing really at Blackburn Rovers. So we should have got in touch with him. He's now works for the FA, I think. So he's obviously done. He's obviously went on to do good things.
What position did you play in football?
Left midfield at that point, mate. Left wing or right wing. It was at that point I was fairly like slight, very fast, good with both feet. I could use either foot. So yeah, I was quite. I wouldn't say I was a commodity, but you know, to find someone who can use both feet very well was obviously a catch.
Yeah. Prison service job. We'll say before that, you had a bit of spell as relief work in the fire brigade.
Well, that actually came late, a little bit later on, mate. So I'd gone down my working, you know, to fast forward that small period. I'd started working for a firm just on a temporary basis, doing like electric roller shutter, like we've just described, going to Cork. I started for this firm just as a temporary young man, you know, in the factory making shutters, making gates, and I was offered a full-time job with them. To which obviously, you know, you're a young man and you think, you know, you're picking up your couple of £100 a week at that point, and you're offered a full-time job. And it was at that point I thought, yeah, okay, right. You know, I'm now starting to get my working man's head on. Forget the fact you're going to be a footballer. You're probably not going to be a footballer now, mate. I started working for this firm, worked for them for, I'd say, a good 7 years, mate, something like that. So we're now talking me being maybe kind of like mid-20s-ish. And I'd started with them in the factory, worked all my way through into like the offices as like an area sales manager for them. You know, because I had a good knowledge of the business. But all the while, at that point, I'd started to go and watch Newcastle at weekends. I'd started, you know, drinking, getting into the, you know, the going out scene. So the football really, mate, at that point had started to take a back burner. I did little bits, pissing about. And I think it was about 21, 22, and I actually went back to it for a team down in Liverpool called Burscough, semi-professional, back in my hometown as well, Lancaster. They had a really good team at the time, mate. They were literally getting on the verge of going into conference, so I couldn't get anywhere near their team. Because I just, you know, once you'd left it, I'd had 5 years on that. And albeit I was still a decent footballer, I could still hold my own. I was never going to be what I was. So I was doing the kind of travelling around to Liverpool to play for the semi-pro, working for this company, out on the piss at weekends, doing what a young man does, started to become a bit of a womanizer. I mean, if we look at the psychology behind it, it was all to replace, as a 40-year-old man looking at it now, it was all to replace what I thought I'd lost when I was 16. So all that and the women and the adulation and all that bollocks, it was all just to replace what was actually really missing, which was what I wanted to do was be a footballer. But at that point, I didn't have the discipline to get back on the straight. Do you know what I mean, mate? It was just poor reactions, immaturity, and it just led down. That's the start of the path, I think, where we will get to in a while of how I've ended up where I did. I think that was the start of it. I started to sow seeds in my mind that I could find peace from an outward source rather than finding it within, like we all know we need to, was finding it from that, anything else, anything that you could imagine. I just wanted something to fill that void with, which I think was pain, really. So yeah, so I've worked for this company for 6, 7 years. We've now got to a point in life, you know, as a mid-20s man, you start to think, am I achieving anything? I've done 5 or 6 years on the piss now. What have I actually achieved? And I had the chance to, I don't know if you have this in Ireland. I guess you would, because Ireland's quite rural, isn't it? What we have in England, we've got obviously the fire service, and sometimes within the fire service, you have what's called retained. So in a rural village, let's say in a little village outside of Cork, you'd have a little fire station, but the firemen are not there full time. They're on alerters, you know, like little pages.
Yeah,
so,
on call, yeah.
Well, exactly, on-call firemen, and we call it retained over here. But in England, you would get a mixture. All the stations can be intertwined. So you don't know, listen, when there's a fire going off, the fire engine turns up outside your house, mate. You don't know whether that person's full-time or part-time. It's just a fireman, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I had a chance to the fire service come into work, and they said, would anybody be interested in joining the fire service, you know, within work and being on call? And our boss at the time, bless him, was really good company to work for, actually, mate. He said, yeah, if any of my staff want to join the fire brigade and they can do it, and I can allow them to leave work, then that's fine. So I think 4 or 5 of us applied. I think it was whittled down to 2 or 3. And fortunately enough, obviously you go for physical testing. I was still fairly fit. So I went for all the tests, you know, flew through that, went for the physical test, flew through that, and I was actually really enjoying doing it. And it kind of set a spark in my mind. I thought, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing this. So I ended up joining the fire brigade, mate, part-time. Then left the company that I was working for. And the thinking behind that was when I was with a girl in Morecambe, and they had a full-time fire station, but with a part-time pump on it. So my thinking was, fucking, here's my inroad here. And this fire brigade stuff was fulfilling exactly what I spoke about then, about the void. And, you know, it was fulfilling the physical side of it, the ego side of it, dare I say it, the interest side of it. And, you know, I was really enjoying doing it. So I came down to Morecambe, did really well there. And I thought, this is what I want to do full time. This is me now. This is what I want. And I think for the next couple of years, mate, I obviously set aside a few years in my mind to think, right, I'm going to give myself a couple of years to join the fire brigade full time, because I was now mid-20s, say 26, 27, something like that, mate. And I kept applying, and I don't know if you remember back in, say, 2006, 2007, there was a big financial downturn over in England, and a lot of the services, police, ambulance, fire brigade, they were really culling back their recruitment and also their numbers. So what you would find is, you know, 10 firemen would leave and they would all be replaced by 1, because they were really having a big, you know, cull on numbers and finance. So it was just unlucky timing, but I wasn't getting anywhere fast. I kept applying, but nothing was happening. So even if, you know, you still have to apply, even though you're in the fire brigade, you still got to apply for the full-time process. So I was kind of becoming a bit disillusioned with it, and I thought, am I getting anywhere here? Am I just beating a drum that's never going to, you know, come to fruition? So I think I'd applied for a few more services, like, you know, up in Scotland, Grampian. I got accepted for them, and I thought, well, I can't go up to Grampian, so I'll be going on my own. My missus at the time lived down here. So it was a case of, right, I'm getting disillusioned now. And I think the key point, I mean, this is another key point in the journey. I think I'd agreed to go, I'd bought like a cheap holiday, you know, you used to be able to go to travel agents, mate, and you used to buy a holiday in a window. You know, it's not like the internet. And you used to be able to go into the travel agents, and there'd be a holiday in the window, it'd say 200 quid a Ibiza. And you'll go in and you fucking get there, and it could be, you could be in the biggest shithole ever. But it was an holiday for 200 quid, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've seen a holiday, mate, for, I want to say 120 quid, which you can't even get a flight for that to Turkey now. And the whole holiday was 3-star Marmaris, Turkey, which I'd never been before. You know, I love Turkey now. I've been back a million times since. But at the time, I thought, Turkey gets a bad rep, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Or it used to in the day. You know, certainly if you're taking your girlfriend, there was always the old adage of, oh, you're going to get harassed, because, you know, she was a good-looking girl. And I thought, do I need the hassle? But it's 120 quid holiday, mate, innit? So you do it. So yeah, I booked it, and I've come home and I've said to her, right, we're going on holiday to Turkey next week. I booked it off with the fire brigade, etc., etc. So we get to Turkey. I'm literally, mate, sat around the pool, you know, little Turkish beer on the sea. My phone's going. It's my mum. So I've picked the phone up and I said, yeah, is everything all right? Yeah, that's fine. Lee, the fire brigade have been on the phone to you. Can you ring them AS? So I've got on the phone to the fire brigade. I believe you're trying to get hold of me. You know, I'm on holiday in Turkey. Is there anything wrong? You know what I mean? Thinking, bloody hell, something might have gone wrong. Can you get to training centre for 9 o'clock on Monday morning? And I'm like, this is now like Saturday afternoon, I think, mate. Marmaris, I just landed on Friday. And I'm thinking, I was like, what? You know, I'm on holiday. They said, oh, we've got a space on a full-time course if you can get to the training centre for 9 o'clock on Monday. So I actually looked at the flights, mate, and I think I could get into one of the London airports, I think, at 10 o'clock on the Monday morning, which meant I wouldn't have got there really till the Tuesday. So I've rung the fire brigade back and said, you know, this is the case. Right, well, we're going to have to offer it to someone else then. And I thought, And yet again, this is my point, mate, about the way I reacted to things. So the Preston North End thing, I've chucked my toys out of the pram, haven't I? Like an immature man. The fire brigade thing, I've now been told this, which again was what I wanted to do, and they've said we need you to get to the training centre, knowing full well that I couldn't get there. I've then took that as a real slap on the face, shall we say. I've dealt with it wrong again. Yeah, I mean, reacted wrong again, and I've got home and I've thought to myself, maybe this is not going to happen. So I've said to her, right, I don't know if I'm going to carry on this fire brigade stuff. But I was still retained at that point, so we're still doing it, mate. Still going out to fires, still enjoying it. But I had this burning thing in the back of my mind thinking somebody's having me off here. So anyway, this is a key moment in our conversation. At the time, my girlfriend's mum was in the prison service. She worked at one of the jails. There's 2 jails in Lancaster, or there was at that time. One being an adult male jail called Lancaster Castle, which you can now do tours round. It's a disused prison, much the same as Shrewsbury, you know, the one that they filmed Time in, the jail that I was at. They're both very similar, mate. They're both like old stately buildings. So she's working in there, and she said, why don't you apply for the prison service? And I thought, what? So we've gone from football, fire brigade, and now we're talking about prison service. I'm thinking, what would I want in the prison service? What the hell? So the seed's been planted, you know, you get 30 grand a year, you get a pension, it's a decent job, you're a people person, and you start to think, well, do you know what? I actually might be all right at that. So she's got onto me again. Have you had any more thoughts about prison service? And obviously I'd mentioned it to a few of my friends at that point. I think I actually knew 1 or 2 people who worked up there. And they've said, yeah, you know, you'll be decent at it. You know, you're all right with people, you're confident, etc., etc. So I've put an application into the prison service, mate. And I think at that time, I think it was taking about a year for people to get in, you know, because it's quite a slow process. Various testing points, you know, but physical testing, mental testing, play acting, all that jazz. So I've put an application in, and I reckon, mate, within 2-3 weeks, I've got someone through the door saying, we'd like to invite you for, you know, obviously practical tests, being maths, English, etc. So I've gone for that. I've done the tests. I mean, I'm still working in the fire brigade at this point, mate. I'm still doing the job, still doing the football. So it was just summer. It was, as a young man, I needed to be going somewhere on a track, and I needed a bit of excitement. So for me at that point, it could have been anything. I just wanted something more than what I had, which was stupid, really, because in hindsight, I should have just stuck with what I was doing because I'd have been really successful at it. But in my mind, I was missing something. So the prison service, I thought, yeah, let's do it. So they've done the test. It's come back a couple of weeks later, mate. Right, we'd now like to invite you for, they call it JSACs, which is like a role play examination. It's, you know, for people out there who don't know, they put you in 6 different scenarios in a testing centre. So one may be, for instance, it might be an angry shopkeeper. You've got to go into the room. It's all about how you deal with situations, information finding, and what you're like in those given situations and what you can gain from them. Yeah. So one might be an angry shopkeeper. One might be an upset lady in the corner, and it's all about you're on. There's a big camera in the middle of the room, and they're watching you all the time to see how you're reacting, to see how it's supposed to replicate a prison environment. It's fucking absolutely nothing like it, but that's what it's designed to do, mate. So I've done them. You do another examination on the side of that, and I've come away from there, and I didn't know how it had gone, mate. I mean, I've dealt with certain situations in there. I honestly couldn't tell you if I'd done well or not. 2 weeks later, it's come through, you've passed that, etc. We'd now like to invite you for physical training, assessments, piss that. And I reckon, mate, within 2-3 months, I was offered a job at our local prison. Now, I think I was given 3 options at that point, or you had to put 3 options down, which would have been Lancaster Castle, Preston, which is quite a fruity jail, and Lancaster Farms, which at the time was a young offenders institute. You know, lads that are up to 21. So I mean, ours it literally is, mate, 5 minutes from my house. It's a big one. I think it holds, off the top of my head, I think it holds about maybe 800 to 1,000 people, which is quite big, really. I don't know what it's like now, mate. I think it's changed category because they've changed things in England now, where you've got lads that are up to 24 years old are classed as young offenders. So things have changed a little bit, but at that point, the clientele that you would have had in that prison, we're only an hour either way from Liverpool and Manchester, mate. So you would have, say, 40% Manchester and their big gangs, 40% Liverpool and their big gangs, and then the other 20% of the lads would be lads that are mixed in and around, you know, the areas, Wigan, all that jazz. But predominantly, mate, Liverpool, Manchester, and some fairly hefty companies in there, if you know what I mean.
And this is Lancaster Farms now, is it?
Lancaster Farms, mate.
Yeah, really, yeah. I suppose you would have been quite young going into the prison service.
I think when I went in there, I was maybe, I want to say 26, 27, something like that. So the lads would have been, you know, lads were maybe only 5 years younger than myself. You know what I mean? You've got some, I mean, not that it means anything, mate, but I was a very young kind of, dare I say it, likable lad at that point, because I was quite confident. You know, I was full of the football, I was full of the women and the booze talk. So I was very, probably to the lads, I was very relatable, which, you know, we're going to go on to what happened. Take aside what I was doing or what I did, I actually thought I was quite decent at the job, because, you know, obviously, you know, people are going to say, well, obviously the lads liked you because you was doing what you was doing, but I wasn't always doing what I was doing. I was, you know, a straight officer, shall we say, for a long time before that. I thought I was actually quite a decent officer. I mean, I'd love to go back into it now at the age that I am, knowing what I know. I probably would be able to make more of a positive impact. I mean, obviously that's never going to happen, but you know what I mean? It's a shame, because someone like me now with my experience would actually benefit lads that are in there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I suppose you're approachable as well. I suppose people were comfortable asking you for legitimate favors in your role, like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. And I was one of them officers, mate, that when you join the prison service as a young, this is what I found difficult, as a young, fresh member of staff, you are battling firstly with yourself, with, you know, the new environment, the hostile environment, the change, because let's face it, prison it's a walled city of absolute mayhem, and it can be quite a scary place, mate. You know, and for a young officer going in, it's very intimidating. I mean, I remember in the middle of a training that we'll get on to, I remember going back there for a week or two. They send you back in the middle of it all to kind of have a look at the jail or the wing that you're going to work on. And I remember going in there thinking, fucking hell, mate, this is like a zoo. It literally, it was the noise that hit me. As soon as you open that door, you've got 100 lads and it's going off, mate, and everybody's shouting, there's music, you know, there's people screaming across, there's people playing pool, there's TVs on, and the noise just hit me, and I thought, bloody hell, this is quite overwhelming, this. I mean, I didn't tell anyone, but, you know, I went home that night, mate, and I thought, fucking hell, have I made the right decision here? But
would you have said your colleagues were supportive to you in the prison service?
I think it's tough. Yeah, sorry, mate. That was the point I was going to get onto. Then, as a new member of staff, you've got to. I think you've got to play up to, because you are in a vulnerable environment, and I felt vulnerable. You look to the officers that are there for kind of guidance. Now, what I struggled with is officers in there are very, dare I say it, very conditioned and very. How can I put this across, mate? So they're set in their own ways, and they've got quite a negative, or I found quite a negative attitude towards prisoners in there. So you're looking at them for inspiration and also comfort. They're wanting you to act into their model, so you can't be yourself. So I was very confused in myself at the time, thinking, well, I just want to be me and be normal and quite, you know, like fucking happy-go-lucky and try and get a good relationship with the prisoners, but I'm kind of being modelled by the staff that are in there already to be this, you know, hard-faced, fucking hard-nosed bastard. But that's me. That's maybe where I went wrong. Maybe I should have listened to them more. Maybe I should have taken that road. But that's not me, mate. Do you know what I mean? I can't act like an arsehole, strict. I can't be horrible to someone just for the sake of being horrible to someone. But I understand that they've probably had years in the service, so they're probably that beaten down by it. Because let's face it, a very stressful job, mate. It is. I certainly wouldn't do it for the money that they're being offered to do it these days. I don't think it's a very good job personally for a young person to be going into anyway. But and that's not me being bitter. That's just me going through the experience of it all, mate. I've seen what it can do to you. I've seen what it can do if you're not doing your job properly for the other members of staff. Because let's face it, I was letting them down as well in the end. So it's a tough one, mate. It's a tough job. It really is.
Sam used the term dynamic security for his style of dealing with prisoners, and it sounds like you're kind of similar enough to that.
Yeah.
In terms of
he loves it. He loves a good dynamic security, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it sounds like you were kind of in that mold as well, like trying to build relationships with prisoners, trying to find out stuff you can connect with and build rapport with. You know, it's something that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know Sam's. I mean, he released something the last day or two where he said, you know, that maybe he'd caught in a cell with a load of, you know, cannabis or whatever, and it was a case of, look, that's going down the toilet, rather than put him on a nicking sheet. You know, that's in a weird kind of way. That's dynamic security in the sense of, look, I know what you're up to. It's quite obvious what you're up to. However, I need to keep you on side because at some point I may either need you as an ally or I might need you, you know, maybe for some information. And it is all about being dynamic, mate. And listen, there's 3 on my landing. There was 3 prison officers to 80 lads. Now, I've mentioned this before. One of my first shifts. This is why you need to be dynamic, mate. You need to have, in my eyes, a really good relationship with the lads on there, because if you look at the numbers game, there's 3 of you and 80 of them. If they really wanted to, they could rip every bone out of your body. If you run around that wing like an arsehole playing Mr. I Am, you're going to get hammered. And I remember one of my first shifts, mate. I was sat down on association. All the prisoners are out on the landings, all playing pool. So there's pool balls all over the shop. People wanting to go to the showers, people wanting to use the phones. You're sat there with a list and you've got to have your eye on 80 lads. I mean, imagine that. And I'm sat there with 2 girls. One's an old girl of maybe 60-year-old. One of them is maybe 8 stone wet through. And I remember as a young member of staff thinking, if this goes off in here, what really am I going to do? It's a case of, you know, where's the nearest door? Where's the nearest table I can hide under here? Because as game as you are and as bravado as you are and as macho as you think you are, you're absolutely nothing. You could get torn to shreds, mate, which is why Sam mentions dynamic security. But let's face it, it's called, in my eyes, it's called being a human. But in that job, you need to have that relationship with the lads, because at any point, one of them might save you, mate. If you're getting pummeled in a cell, a couple of decent lads, you know, if you're not all right with them, they're going to come in that cell and rescue you. So it's all about basic survival instincts for me.
Yeah, it's a bit of give and take as well, you know what I mean? So
it is, yeah. And if you get in respect back, then if the lad wants to use the phone and the phone's free, there's some officers in there, mate, where if the phone stood there not being used and the lad wants to use the phone, they'd say, no, you've used the phone this morning. And I just wasn't one of them. I'd be like, well, if the phone's free and you're all right and you've been all right with me, you can go and jump on the phone, mate. You can go and have that shower. You go and have an extra shower. Because really, what is it to me? It's nothing to me.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It's hard as a young member of staff to gauge, do I side with the existing officers? And yes, no, you can't go and use the phone. And I mean, it's all about boundaries. I get that. And I get why, maybe I messed up. But I'd do it all again, mate. If somebody wants a shower and the shower's free, go and have a shower.
Yeah.
Just don't take the piss.
So things started to change.
Yeah.
After a while.
I think I'd maybe been doing the job, I want to say 18 months, 2 years, something like that. And I think it had started to build. At that point, mate, I was struggling, you know, like I've said on Sam's, like I've just said to you there, I'm talking about it now, but at the time, no one knew that, I was really struggling with the job in the sense of I'd thought I'd made a wrong decision because I wasn't really into the job. Number 2, I was struggling dealing with the pressure of it. I found myself coming home, started to drink a hell of a lot more, started to withdraw. from maybe, I think the key point that I made before about the noise, when I would come home from work, all I'd want to do was sit in a room of silence, because you've been dealing with 100-mile all day long. The only thing I wanted to do, mate, was to sit in a room and just have absolute silence, which is like stark contrast to the day at work. I mean, a lot of people are like that anyway, aren't they? Want to come home and relax. But I think ever more so in that job, you value your downtime more. But at that point, it was just purely isolation. Sit in a room, pour a massive glass of red wine as soon as you come through the door, put the bath on, and block out the world, I think.
Yeah.
So obviously that had started to, this is kind of creeping up. Looking back on it, it was creeping up for a long time. Me and at the time, me and the missus has obviously started to. It does change your relationship wise as well. You don't, you don't engage as much. You don't socialize as much. Any socializing you do tended to be like, with the odd prison officer or whatever. Because I think you gain, like, you almost gain like I wouldn't say it's like the army, but you gain trust and you gain support, don't you, from within? Because you kind of feel that if you come home and explain what's gone on to someone, they're not really going to understand what's gone on at work. I mean, everybody can, empathise and whatnot, but I think you find solace within, your fellow prison officers.
Someone who's been doing the job and knows exactly what you're talking about, they can empathise, like, yeah.
Which maybe in a looking back retrospectively, maybe that was the wrong thing to do, because you're compounding everything, aren't you? You keep living it. Maybe the best thing to do at that point would have been to go and speak to other people that are completely, far from you. But yeah, no, it started to pressure-wise. It started to take its toll, mate, and that manifested itself in, a hell of a lot of boozing, a hell of a lot of isolation. Just a changed man. Just started to change me.
So after the 2-year mark, can you tell us about how you were approached by the inmates?
Yeah, it was on one of my wings, which was at the very far corner of the jail. When you're a fairly young member of staff going into the prison service, they have so on a wing in a daytime, you would have certain job roles. So let's say one officer was what we have in England. I don't know if it's the same in Ireland. We have a cleaning officer, or as Sam says, cleaning warder. I don't know where he's got that from. It's a cleaning officer, yeah. And what they're responsible for doing is basically they are in charge of all the prison movements on and off that wing. So you've got people going out to work, you've got people to go to healthcare, you've got people going to the gym, and you're responsible for all the numbers at any one given point on that day, for all the roll calls. You're the person to go to. But you also, as well, when all the movements have happened off the wing, you have your job role is to, and exactly what it says on the tin, mate, look after the cleaning of the wing. So you have a member, you have a team of, say, 6, usually good lads, usually lads who can look after themselves, lads who've fairly well behaved on the wing, and again, that dynamic security thing where you would have lads on there that would also help you. So if someone's been an arsehole, if you've got someone giving you grief, maybe they would go and have a word with them for you, and just they would basically be like your mini police on the wing. I mean, obviously, they're going about their own business and getting up to what they're getting up to, but so that's when you're the cleaning officer, you're in charge of a group of 6 people on the wing in the daytime. They would also work on the servery, dishing up all the food for the lads. So with that party, you become quite close to them 6 lads, because you're in the face all day long. Everything that they do, you're a part of. They come to you, you sort it out. So you naturally become bonded with those 6 lads. So it's basically started from that part. They were, I'm trying to think at the time, there were 2 lads from maybe Liverpool, and I remember one day one of the lads come up to me and said, "Can you go and have a word with, let's say for instance Smith, in the cleaning cell." So I've gone in the cleaning cell, and there's a lad with a head in his hands, tears all over the shop, and visibly upset, mate. So at that point you think, what's going on? No, I knew at that point And I remember saying this on Sam's podcast, and some people put in the comments, underneath that, oh, this is bollocks, etc., etc. I've said this now many times, and this is exactly how it happened. Now, it only happened this way because I was open to it, wasn't I? I was an open book. And this lad's dad was very ill in hospital, and that was the reason for the entry for the cell. The fact that he was upset because his dad was in hospital, and I remember sat with him for 5 or 10 minutes, chatting about what had gone on. He said, "Can I get on the phone? I haven't got any phone credit. Can I get on the phone?" Now, at that point, you can give them, I think as an SO, you can give them like £1 credit or something like that. Now, obviously, that's not going to last very long in prison, is it? So I said, well, I can get you £1 credit. That's all I can do at the moment. And then come the question of, please, can you do me a favour? Please, I've got 400 quid for you. Can you bring me a telephone in? And I'm thinking, whoa, didn't expect that. So at that point, as a prison officer, what you should do, as protocol is obviously go out the cell, tell the SO, put an SIR report in that Sam talks about, which is like a security information report. It's basically, there's a security department in a prison, mate, that look after all the kind of mumblings in the prison. They can try and piece together things that are happening on wings. So if you've got loads of lads from Liverpool or Manchester, and there's a lot of dealing going on that wing, and do you know what I mean? They all piece it together. So you put reports in as an officer to go into that department, then to log, to look at the bigger picture. So what I should have done is then put an SIR report in, placed him on report, because at the end of the day, to ask a staff to bring some, contraband in is, a reportable offence. You'd be looking at, extra days in front of the governor maybe. So anyway, that's the key mistake. That's what I should have done. It's not what I did. I went to play football at dinner time, five-a-side football in the prison. I've then come back onto the wing. I was the cleaning officer, mate, sent everybody out to work again. Now this is in my mind thinking, somebody's just offered me 400 quid to bring a telephone in. Now, bearing in mind, I told you at that point, I was all over the shop, too much drinking. I fucking hated the job. I wasn't coping well with it. And then somebody offers you 400 quid to bring a phone in, and you think, no, it's not happening. So I said to him, no. Later on that afternoon, he asked me again, upset again, please, please, please. It's only going to happen the once. I only want you to do it once. So I don't know why, mate. I don't know why the fuck I did it. I had no intention of doing it. It was a moment of absolute stupidity and madness that has cost me and a lot of people a lot of emotion, a lot of heartache. Certainly cost me a lot of time, and in turn, if I'm going to be bluntly honest with you, mate, it's damn nearly cost me my life in some ways. So I've gone back into the cell and I've said, right, I'll do it. It's only going to happen the once, and that's it. Say no more. I mean, how stupid is that? That's never going to happen, is it? To anybody out there or any officers watching, just don't ever do it. Please don't ever do it, because it's never once. It's never legit. And it was just absolute stupidity, pal. So I've agreed to do it. I've said, right, how's this going to work? So I've been handed a mobile phone number on a little bit of paper and told to ring this number tonight. When you leave work tonight, ring this number. So I've left the prison at, say, 5 o'clock. I've then driven maybe 3 or 4 miles outside of town it's in the old days, mate, when you used to have a telephone box in the country. So I thought, right, I'm going to ring the number. So I rung the number, right, are you such and such? Yes. Where are you? We'll meet you at the hotel off the motorway. So I'm now thinking, shit, this is getting real now. Because let's face it, could have been a setup, mate. Could have been people there waiting for me to either fucking kidnap me, do me in. You never know who you've upset, do you? Or, like I said, I was fairly confident that I've not upset people. So I've agreed to do it, pulled up next to this car in the car park, and windows come down. 2 lads are in there and said, are you Lee? Yeah, right, okay, here you go. Throw me a package into the car. So it's kind of landed, obviously, on the passenger seat. Then I've just had a load of rolled up notes thrown at me. So I've now got some fucking 400 quid on the car seat and what appears to be a mobile phone in a package. So, and that was that. It was a case of, right, see ya. So I'm now sat in the car park. 10 minutes ago, mate, I was a prison officer, firefighter, etc., and now I'm sat in a car with something to take into a prison and money that's going to fucking cost me a lot down the line, in life. So how do you deal with that one? I remember driving around for maybe 20 minutes thinking, what have I done? What we're doing? Got home. I think the missus was out at the time. Got in, poured the biggest glass of red wine you've ever seen in your life. More than likely half a bottle, and just fucking necked a lot. Because at that point, that's what I was doing every night anyway. So it was one of them, mate. Not good.
Yeah, that morning, the following morning, then when you went into the prison, you kind of talk us through how that went for you.
Yeah. So obviously of the evening, I'd struggled to sleep. So I'd probably drunk more than what I should have done. I was obviously very quiet, very anxious. And yeah, playing absolute gymnastics in my mind all night long, thinking, what the hell has gone on here? How have I come to this? At that point, I should have I shouldn't have fucking done it, should I? Yeah, so I was anxious, nervous, probably drunk a little more than what I should, just to get off to sleep, mate. So I was playing, I was having mental gymnastics in my mind, thinking, how the hell have I got to this? How have I got to where I am now? But in the same token, thinking, shit, I've got something that somebody thinks I'm taking into a prison and they've paid me money for. So I'm now thinking, crap, what do I do here? So the morning, I think, of taking the first package in, I've got up, I think it was on an early shift. So, I'd worked out, obviously, you're going through a lot of scenarios in your mind on the way into prison, thinking, is this a setup? The police there? What have I done? And I remember stuffing it down my pants, but it was kind of moving. So I thought, well, how the hell am I going to do this? So I put on, 2 pairs of pants, and I think I'd even sellotaped it to my pants. That's how ridiculous all this is. Walked into the prison, you go through a prison gate. When the gate's shut, you're in kind of what you would say a sterile area. Once you go past that barrier, mate, there are signs on the prison that say if you bring anything in, like, I don't know, lighters, mobile phones, contraband, that is obviously an offence. So even looking at that sign, I'm thinking, I don't know. I'd gone into an absolute mode of stupidity, and I didn't know what was going on at that point, mate. I think I'd lost the plot. I genuinely think I'd lost the plot. But at that time, went and got my radio, went and got the keys. So many staff are now coming into the prison. You've got to walk. My wing was at the very far end of the prison, so it was like the walk of shame. I remember getting onto the wing, and I remember the lad, as I was walking through, you would walk in the wing and the cells are facing you. I remember the cleaner's cell was there on my left, and I looked, and there was somebody stood at the window, the lad that was supposed to be bringing it for in, waiting for me to come in, thinking, is it in? Is the package in? So he looked at me like that, and he's just gone, and I've gone. So I've gone onto the wing. I've got everybody off out to work again as the cleaning officer. I've then gone into the cell, and I, just as blunt as this, mate, I've got it out of my pants, just thrown it at him and said, right, that's it, no more. That's it, done. Walked out of the cell, and then obviously lived with that thought on my mind all day, thinking, now I'm thinking, fuck, I'm in shit now. It's a setup. It's a setup. You're playing all that kind of paranoia is going through your mind. I was drinking heavily. I'd done what I'd done. I had a lot of paranoia anyway. My mind was all over the shop. And I knew that what I'd done had probably fucking cost me my freedom at some point. I'm not gonna lie, mate. In the back of my mind, I knew it was all gonna end in tears. But I was on a railroad at that point to fucking destruction, I think.
Would you say that that guy whose dad was sick, was that a genuine case that he wanted the phone to contact his dad, or would you say it was pure manipulation and he's being manipulated by someone else to snare you?
It's a tough question, that, mate. It's a really tough question, and I guess I'll never know the answer. I did think it was genuine because I knew the lad's dad was very ill. However, I think he's probably used it in that situation for manipulation. I've been there, listen, we'll talk about where I got to later on, but I've been there where you'll tell anybody anything just to get a head change. Whether that was the case, I guess I'll never know. I've never spoke to the guy since, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would guess there was an element of manipulation, absolutely, yeah.
So after that, I'm guessing you went around your duties for the next while. Was it long before you were approached again?
About 4 days later, mate, 3 or 4 days later, same again. I'm unlocking and whatnot. All the boys have gone off to work. I think at the time I might have been in the laundry, pissing about doing something, and I've come out and let me get this right. I think I've gone over there near the TVs, and then I've gone into the cells just to make sure. You have to do what you call bar checks, physical checks. So you go in, make sure there's no, issues in the cell, and you do that every cell between 2 or 3 officers. And I've gone in and he sat on the bed. He said, right, okay. And I think it was this time, mate, if I'm honest. I mean, we're talking a while back now. I think he said, look, I've got another 500 quid for you. I need you to do me another one. So obviously the price had gone up, to get the interest or the juices flowing, shall we say. But yeah, that was maybe about 4 days later. Same drill again. And again, I've said no straight away. No, I told you that it was only going to happen the once. But I think at that point, being perfectly honest about it all, and I have been on, I was on Sam's, I've been on Billy's. At that point, all I saw then, I think I'd got over the initial disappointment of what I'd done, in the sense of I blocked it out. Now, when someone just mentioned money to me, it's like money had taken over. There was, the morals had gone, the moral scruples had gone, the compass had gone. And if someone says, now, right, I've got another 500 quid for you. Now, prison officer only earns, certainly nowadays, mate, they only earn, I think they go in at like bloody 18 grand a year, which, in real terms, and listen, I know it's not right, and this is the issue that I'm talking about. We need to protect officers going in the service, because what I did was absolutely wrong and horrific. But if we look on the outset, they're taking on a lot of youngsters these days that say they're even as young as 21, mate. So if you're paying a 21-year-old, call it 1,300 quid a month after tax, if you offer them 500 quid to bring a phone in, at some point there's going to be some idiot like me that says yes. And there's a hell of a lot more of it, like Sam says. There's so much of it in the prison service at the moment, mate, that they don't want you to know. Officers these days, they're getting caught with stuff. Like Sam says on his podcast, they're getting caught with stuff. And because it's that prevalent, they're getting walked to the gate and basically taking the keys off them and told to piss off. They're not even getting to court or police, or in my instance, 4 years in jail. They're not even getting to that point, mate, because it's that prevalent. But if you pay them 18 grand a year, it doesn't take a genius to work out that people are going to be open to manipulation of 500 quid a parcel. It's, do the prison service really want to protect these young officers, or are they just purely cannon fodder? That's the bone of contention for me. Looking at it from a man who's been through it all, how do we protect the people coming into the service now?
That's a shocking starting salary for the level of responsibility and the level of
absolutely
put up with. I don't see how anyone would be incentivized to work for that.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So,
without being disrespectful, mate, and I've used this as a flippant comment a few times, but like you say, with the level of responsibility and the level of care that you're offering people within custody, you're getting paid less than what you could earn at frigging Aldi. Let's be real about it.
Yeah, or a call centre, which I worked in for 7 years myself.
I mean, a lot, especially as well, youngsters. I mean, this is only my opinion. A 21-year-old, and I'm not saying all of them, because there are always going to be people who are suited to roles, who are mature enough, who can have a positive impact. But a 21-year-old locking up a 40-year-old hardened criminal who knows the system, who knows how to play it, who knows how to play people, it's like almost like fucking lambs to the slaughter, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got to, as a society, as a system, the prison service won't ever do anything about it, because they're that closed book and they're that embarrassed, because they don't give two shits about you, let's face it. And that's not me being bitter, I'm just telling you how it is. They're always going to be, like Sam says, there's always going to be another person wanting to come into the job, because they want, like I did, they want a career, they want the mortgage, the car. There's always going to be an endless supply of youngsters going into the job. But for me, I just want to security. For me, why have they not got the prison? If they were that bothered about catching corrupt staff, why on every prison is there not high security entry like at Strangeways? And I know people are going to say finance, but if we're truly passionate about stopping drugs in prisons, stopping corrupt staff, stopping all this going on, why isn't there enhanced security going into, like airport security, going into every prison?
Yeah.
Surely the prison service have got that much money, or the government have, to outlay that money to ensure that you've got the highest level of security going into prisons. Why is that not in every prison?
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. So
not that intent.
You mentioned the first couple of times you were approached to bring in phones and packages, that it was kind of casual, kind of, can you bring this in? And I suppose, did it get to the point where it was an instruction as opposed to a request?
Yeah, it had gone. I'd say maybe if we're looking at, if we're looking at a time scale, this had maybe gone on 2 or 3 months. And it was a case of, right, there's another one for you. You need to go and get this. I'd let it become that because I was powerless to it. At that point then, mate, all I was seeing was money, was possibly a way out in the end, because I hated the job at that point, mate. I despised it. I was fucking disillusioned with life. I'd hated myself for doing what I was doing. I was just an absolute broken shell of a man. So now at that point, the key point in this is that I was doing it with, let's say, shall we say, people from Liverpool, yeah? Now on the wings, as I've told you, there was some very hefty gangs at that point coming out of Liverpool and more so Manchester. I remember somebody from one of the bigger ones in Manchester approached me and said, pretty much, we know exactly what you're doing on the wing. You're now going to work for us as well. I want you to do this. And I'm like, oh, at that point, mate, my head had gone. I had no resistance to anything. I was just literally a shell of a man, opening doors, shutting doors, nodding my head. I was going through a lot behind closed doors, which was all brought on by myself because of all this pressure that I put on myself. I was letting people down left, right, and centre. I'd become a recluse. I'd become a major pisshead. And I'd become a horrible man. I'd become a horrible, nasty man at home as well. I had no time for people, no time for family or the missus. It was just a trail of destruction, mate, that I'd got myself into. So when the Manchester side of things approached me and said, we know what you're up to, you'll do the same for us. It was just an add-on. It was just an add-on to what I was doing. So I started to then become involved with, that side of things as well down in Manchester. But
did you feel you were kind of used as a pawn between Liverpool and Manchester gangs?
I don't know if it was a pawn, mate. I think it was just a supply chain. It's like anything, isn't it? In that industry, supply and demand and supply and demand. I was just obviously a route in at that point that was a very easy route in.
But did the Liverpool guys not like the fact that you're now bringing in stuff for the Manchester lads, or did they care?
Listen, I don't think they were that fussed because to use a term, I think the jail was being flooded, so there was plenty of custom there for both. If you look at that side of it, there was plenty of custom for both sides of it.
So what kind of period are we talking this is going on for, roughly, Lee, from bringing stuff in?
I'd say it's probably going on for, you're probably looking at about a year, something like that, mate.
So the only stuff that you were aware you brought in were phones. You didn't actually open the package to see what else, but
I was never involved in all I would do. A meeting would usually go like this, the phone call would be, right, be in Lancaster area for 6 o'clock Saturday. I would then ring them and it would be different places every time. I would then arrange to meet someone, say 2 junctions up on a motorway in the services. And it literally would be, mate, I would pull up in a car. It would usually be someone who I was familiar with, as in seen before. Package would be chucked in my car, like I've said before, and I would be chucked a load of notes. and that was the transaction. Now at that point, it was already pre-packaged stuff. It was rolled up in, as you would do, as normal dealers do, in packages of say around that size. And to me, it felt like mobile phones. Although I'm not going to lie to you, mate. After about 3 or 4 times, I'm same as you, mate. Same age as you. A lot of my mates smoked weed, so I could smell the fact that there was cannabis in there. I'm not going to deny that. As far as everything else goes, I've got no idea what was in there. I never went into the packages in fear of, do you know what I mean, what I might find, or I've got no interest in what was in the packages, mate. As far as I was concerned, I was basically a taxi. It was literally a taxi, wasn't I? I got cash, given a package, take the package into the jail. It's up to them to deal what they want.
And I suppose on average, was it like a package a week, 2 packages a week, roughly, over the year
Maybe
period?
2 a week.
2 a week.
Maybe 2 a week, something like that. Yeah.
So, while it was a profitable year for you financially,
yeah, I mean, but at that point, mate, I was cash rich, very cash rich. But what can you do with it? It was weird. It was a false economy. I was getting money, but I couldn't really do anything with it because, obviously questions had been. No one knew what I was doing, mate. So, it's not as if I could rock up with a brand new BMW M3 because the missus would say, "Well, hang on a minute, we're struggling to pay the freaking mortgage here. And where have you bought your M3 from?" So yeah, there was plenty of cash around, which was spent on, ill-gotten gains, spent on the usual bollocks, just flashing it around, buying. At that point, I was still fairly materialistic, still stupid. So yeah, I'd go on holidays or fucking buy clothes or just stupid shit, mate. Really stupid shit. But I mean, that cash, if you look at where we are now, so we're 12 years on. It doesn't matter what amount of money I made during that period, divide it by 12 years worth of absolute heartache and pain, get it back into life, get it back onto the job ladder. It really does show how insignificant and how stupid actually doing something like that is. Because, I mean, where did it get me, mate? It got me a couple of quid for a year or two, and then it all went tits up. And for 10 years, I've struggled to get back to where I am. So it doesn't matter what money somebody offered you back then, unless we're talking bank robber money. It doesn't really matter, does it? It's all irrelevant.
I suppose it's like the old cliche, honest money goes further, as annoying as it can.
Absolutely.
Working in
absolutely
40-hour a week job,
Yeah, and that's the message to the whole point of it. There's 50% of this has been soul soothing, shall we say, for me, with stuff with Sam. But now for me, it's about trying to, just maybe, even if it's, I'm talking about a lad on the street as well who's just dealing a bit of this, that, and the others. It's just not worth it. Just try and put your energy into something that you're passionate about. I know it's cliche, and listen, when people used to say this when I was younger, I'd be like, "Shut up, you idiot! Just stop, this bloody soul searching crap." But just for the sake of a few £100, don't jeopardize 10 years down the line. Don't jeopardize your family. Don't jeopardize your reputation, because that's the hard part for me, mate. The reputation that I had. Like I've said to you, I was quite a likable lad. Was in a fire brigade. I locked up bad people. I had a decent reputation, and all that within that fucking 1 second, gone. Absolutely gone. It's tough. That's the toughest part, I think. The disappointment that you see on people's faces.
Well, you're rebuilding that now, so I mean, we should have success in doing that, yeah. But I can imagine, and it is good. It is really good advice what you're saying there, We're just going to move on, I suppose, to probably one of the worst days of your life, I'd say.
Yeah.
Was when it all came to a head.
The courtroom, or when we were clocked doing it. Yeah, this is definitely the worst day of the life, mate. If Carlsberg did days, this would be a Carlsberg day, this one. So the morning, things have really started to build up.
Caffrey's. They have a similar logo to Carlsberg, so yeah.
we might need to go and get another one of these in a minute. So the day of reckoning, shall we say. Now, just prelim to that, the stress had been so fucking immense, mate, of trying to fulfill my duties to these two factions, I had actually taken a week off work because my head had gone. I took a week off work and I thought, just on my own, not to go on holiday anyway, just on my own to kind of compute what was going on. And I remember being sat in the garden, beer in hand as usual, fucking 11 o'clock in the morning, mate. And I'm flicking through this newspaper, not paying no attention to it whatsoever, mate. Just flicking there, just an excuse to sit in the garden and have a beer. And I've come to the middle page of the newspaper, opened it up, and I thought, oh no, oh Jesus. And the headline on the newspaper, I think at the time, mate, was UK prisons flooded with mobile phones. And a picture of one of the lads that I was involved with was in the article. He'd been taking a picture in his cell, as they do on the selfies on the mobile phone, in the cell, and it's in the top corner of the spread. There's a big newspaper spread about it, about corruption in UK jails, and this is on my week off. So at that point, I thought, right, the game is up. Even though it suggested that he wasn't in the prison that I was working at, it suggested he was in the other prison in the city. I still knew that something was not right. So I've completed the week off. I've still got 3 packages in my house ready to go into the jail, as a backlog. Because at that point, mate, I'd started backlogging. I'd started fucking holding it at my house and taking it in when I thought was safe. So it's come to the morning of me going back into work, and I've made a conscious decision at that point to try and get out of this prison service. Like, I don't know how I was going to do it. I don't know what I was going to do. Because at that point, I thought, how am I going to tell people that I'm going to leave the prison service? Because my mates will think that, it's stupid. It was just absolute paranoia at the time. Who gives a shit if you leave the prison? Who gives a shit if you leave a job? You know what I mean? What I was doing, I could have saved myself, and I could have saved a lot of people a lot of heartache if I'd have just chucked my keys in. That would be my advice. I've said it on Sam's podcast, and I know there's a couple of people that have listened and just gone to the gate, chucked the keys in, and gone into the sunset. Don't put people in jeopardy anymore. But I didn't. I kept on going at it, mate. And the morning I was coming back off my holidays, I went into the prison. I toyed with it all night, and there was 3 packages there, and I wrapped them all in one. Fucking wrapped them all together, and I thought, I'm going in that prison in the morning. I'm getting rid of everything out of my house because I've had enough of it. My head was literally about to go. I was about to have a nervous breakdown, mate. I was that bad. So I've done that in the morning. I've changed my shift to a very early shift, which is you're first on the wing. So you look through all the documents of an evening. You would prepare things for breakfast. You're first on the wing. There should only be you and the night staff on. So that my thinking was, get on the wing, ditch it somewhere, end of story. I'll think about the rest later. So that morning, mate, I woke up, stuffed it down my pants, but I don't know how the hell I fucking fit it down my pants, because if I was walking like John Wayne, you know what I mean? Joking aside, joking about it now, I must have looked an absolute sight trying to walk. Got down onto the car park, and at that point, the paranoia has gone through the roof, mate. I'm just literally looking at every fucking street corner, thinking that somebody's following me. And I've got into the jail. The night staff are on. I've gone through the first doors, and I'm still looking around thinking, right, okay, this is it. You're all right today. That's you done. Got into the jail. As you go onto the wing, into the yard, the door opened, and it was my manager at the time, and he said, have you got a minute, Lee? I said, yeah, I have, yeah. And he took me into the office, and he said, I don't know, I have to ask you this. Have you got anything on you today that you shouldn't have? And I kind of looked at him, and I thought, fuck. And I said, no, I haven't. I've got nothing. And he said, right, okay. He said, I have to ask you again, have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have? And I thought, well, something's not amiss here. And I said, no, I haven't. No. And he went, right, I'm going to have to take you upstairs. There is a northwest area search team waiting, and we need to do a full search. So at that point, I knew the game was up, mate. I've walked up the stairs. I've got up the top of the stairs. There's 2 sniffer dogs, 3 or 4 big hefty prison officers who were a search team. And at that point, mate, it was like there was an element of, like what I've just told you about what's been leading up. There was an element of calm. It was like, I knew I was going to jail. I knew I was fucked, but I just felt this element of, I don't have any pressure anymore. It's weird. It's a really weird thing to do. But so I said to him, look, just hold on a minute, guys. With all due respect, I'm going to, I'll give you, what you want. So I took the package out of my pants, and I then give it to one of the search officers, and they said, obviously, we still need to search you. I said, yeah, that's fine. I understand the protocol. And went into the room, did the full search. Governor was in there at that point, started to chuck a lot of questions at me, saying, who are you involved with? Why are you doing it? Are you involved with people from Manchester or Liverpool? And I'm like, listen, with all due respect, guys, I'm not going to say anything until I spoke to a solicitor. I don't know why I was that calm, mate. I just sat at the desk, as calm as I've ever been in probably my life. And I know it sounds really stupid, but it was like I knew that no one could get me anymore. I knew I was fucked, but it was weird. This had been building up now for 2 or 3 years. And now was the kind of calm. So the police have come, 2 young coppers from Lancaster. They've come in and they said, is everything all right? They recognised me from going out in town. I said, yeah, not quite. I've had better days as such. So we've done, they've said, right, okay, we understand what's gone on. All the prisoners started to come in at this point, mate. As in all the officers, all the support staff, everybody started to flood through the gates. So they've said, what we'll do, we won't put the cuffs on you. We'll take you down into the car, because it wouldn't be anything untoward that prison officer might go to the police station to maybe get a prisoner, or hospital, or, prison officers will go out all the time. So I've sat in the car. We said, right, there's a police van outside. We've got to go to another job. There's a police van outside that will take you down into custody in Lancaster. So I remember getting outside the prison in the car park, and the 2 coppers, at that point, I had cuffs on me in the back of the car, because they'd had to put them on me. Obviously, I'm under arrest. Not that I was ever going to go anywhere. So I've got cuffs on like this. I've stepped out of the car. The big burly copper who's been brought in on this van, he's grabbed the cuffs and he started dragging me down onto the floor, like into the van, like the face into the van. And I was like, fucking, obviously that had gone on. I'm a fairly plastic guy, mate. So I had a bit of a tussle with him in the car park. And I'm thinking, who the fuck do you think you are doing that? So we've got to the police station. He's done the same. He's dragged me out of the back of the van. So I've had a tussle with him in the sterile area, and the police staff have come running out. And I'm like, you need to fucking sort this idiot out. I don't know who he thinks he is. Got in there, mate. Signed in at the desk, and then put in a cell. And I must have been sat in that cell, mate, so that had happened at 7:30 in the morning. I was still sat in that cell, mate, at 6 o'clock at night, awaiting to be seen, awaiting to be interviewed. I didn't know what was going on. I had one 10-minute phone call to my mum. I was still in full prison officer attire, so I looked like a copper. As I was walking into the cop shop, there was loads of people. Bang, 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 bang on the door. Fucking hell, there's a policeman in here. There's a copper in here. There's a pig in here. So I had all that going on. At that point, I'd rung my mum and said, I'm at the police station. And my mum knew at that point, because what had happened is, when we talk about the days of all days, I'd been going on with a girl who I worked with on my wing, as in having an affair behind my girlfriend's back. I was an arsehole. I told you I was an arsehole at that point, mate. And she had run to the governor when I'd been tugged in the prison. She'd run to the governor and said, I'm not involved with what he's doing. He's this, he's that. She's then, my girlfriend's mum has got hold of it, because she's now worked in the same jail. She's gone and asked the girl, what's going on between you, Lee? They've then gone to see my girlfriend. So unbeknownst to me, I'm sat in a cell. Unbeknownst to me, everything is crumbling around me. Every aspect of my life is crumbling, and I'm sat in a cop shop. It's fucking horrible, mate. So I've got home that night. I've been in police interview for maybe a couple of hours, with 2 coppers in there, good cop, bad cop, firing everything at me that I was part of a big drug gang in London that instigated officers doing it in London jails, that I was part of some big fucking thing. And I was like, you're mad. You're all mad, because I've only ever been to London 3 times, mate, and that was to watch Oasis and Stone Roses. So it's not as if I was exactly some fucking drug dealer or gangland dealer or whatever. So it was tit for tat for about an hour, this interview. And I was thinking, wow, what do they actually think I'm up to here? Because I knew it was always me all along, mate. It was only me that was doing it. So it was a bit bizarre. So then we've got to a point in the interview where they've agreed to bail me because I thought I might be kept in custody. So they've agreed to bail me, yeah. And I remember the policewoman saying, right, okay, we need to contact someone from your family because you will need someone to look after you when you leave here. And I was like, I just want an hour on my own. I need to have an hour on my own to sort out what I'm going to do. And they said, right, okay, well, your dad's waiting outside. They'd rung my dad. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. You know what I mean? So he's picked me up and he said, right, we're going to go to your mum's. He's asked me in the car, what's gone on? Do you think you'll go to prison? I said, yeah, I think I'll be going for a fair lengthy time. And he's then taken me home to my mum, and obviously that's the most disappointing thing, you know, when we talk about committing crimes or whatnot, when you're sat faced with your mum and dad telling them that you're going to go to prison when they think their son is a prison officer, fireman, pillar of the community, when you're sat there saying, I've been taking drugs into a prison, that's probably one of the toughest moments, I think, mate. Anyway, so we've got through that hour with my mum and dad. Then the door knocks. The missus comes through the door, knowing what I've just told you, and I'm thinking, I didn't know any of this at that point. I'm just thinking that I'm telling my mum and dad. So I've lost my job, my career, my reputation, my girlfriend, my mum and dad, all in a wanna that night, mate. And that was, I don't think I've ever had a worse day than that, bar one. But that's, again, stupidity.
I can only imagine how that must have felt like. That's a nightmare day there.
It is. I mean, yeah, it's a very bad day, but listen, there's only one person who's caused all that, hasn't there? So there's no, at any point of any of that could have been changed by me not making the decisions that I did. So I guess the tough part is knowing that you've caused it. I guess if I had an outside excuse, as humans, if we had, let's face it, someone to blame or there was an outside influence, it wasn't. It was all me, mate. I created it. I created that situation and I created all the carnage around it.
You did a very good interview recently, Lee, in the Sunday Mirror, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Mirror, yeah.
That you sent us on. And there's a photograph of that kind of comparing of the day you passed out as a prison officer, the day you kind of graduated and got the job, versus the kind of prison mugshot a few years later. And
you know, if you look at, it's literally night and day, mate, isn't it? I mean, I look at that as, we always look at yourselves on pictures and whatnot, and it's, you always think you look the same, but I look at that picture and I think, fucking hell, look at that lad who joined the prison service, full of enthusiasm, full of life, and look at the picture as I was tugged that morning. I don't think you need any words to describe how, again, all my doing, mate, you know, I wasn't helping with that, but it was all due to me not being in a good place in life. Again, even just looking at someone, that's what it can do to you. You
can see the stress in your face in the prison mugshot photo. You know, compared, and you can tell the effect.
Yeah.
The picture can tell 1,000 words, like, and I think that one definitely does, the effect the prison system had on you, and I suppose what your last year in the prison service had done to you mentally and physically, like, you know. So
it's all born of them situations, like I said, that I created. So it's again, you know, just another little message. If you look at someone physically, look what it can do to you physically, never mind in here. So you've got to be really, if you're going to join that job, mate, listen, I'm not saying that people join it for the wrong reasons, but if you're going to join that job, please take my advice and think long and hard about it. And I'm sure it's a great job, rewarding, if that's your passion. For me, I did it purely because I wanted a pension and I wanted a few quid in the bank. I wasn't passionate about it. I did it because I thought that's what I needed to do in society as a human going forward, as a young man with a career path. In hindsight, what I should have done is waited for the fire brigade, because that would have been a whole different. I mean, listen, we can all say this, that, and the others, and it's given me some invaluable experience, and I'm a better human for it. But it took a hell of a lot out of me and the closest people to me. So if I could have spoken to a younger me, I would have said, wait for the fire brigade, stick to your passion, stick to what you want. don't fucking accept the easy book, you know. And pardon the pun, obviously me doing what I was doing in the prison service, I took the easy road, because they offered me a job.
The aftermath of that was a 4-year prison sentence.
4 years, mate, on the nose, 4 years. In England, to back up what we will probably talk about in a minute regards the aftermath after prison, if you get a 4-year prison sentence in England, it's classed as a serious crime. So if you do 1 day less, it will be off your record, security record, in, say, maybe, don't quote me on it because I know it's changing all the time. Let's say, for instance, it's 4 years, 5 years. So you're going to do a period of where you've got to disclose things, but then you're technically free. If you do 4 years, it doesn't leave your record until 7 years after the end of your license. So for 4 years for me, plus 7, in total, I've had 11 years of this stained on my record.
If you'd 1 day less, you would have been able to wipe it off faster.
1 day less. I may have had an easier road back into society with 1 day less, but the judge knew what she was doing. She was instructed to do that. To cut a long story short, mate, the judge who was following me all the way through the case, because it took me a year to get to prison. I was on bail for a year, which is when things really went west, and I started to use drugs, alcohol, anything I could get my hands on to take me away from what was coming. Which later on after prison didn't stand me in good stead, because I went back to it. When I started to struggle, I realised that there was a buffer there, so I went back to it. But yeah, the judge followed me all the way through the case, and it was changed at the very last minute, and she was instructed to give me 4 years exactly.
In hindsight, it would have been better if you just got into prison straight away, then, wouldn't it? Rather than a year on bail.
Absolutely, pal. I mean, I'd have been out and about doing my thing, but obviously they had a lot of investigating to do, because, as I said, they were trying to make out that I was certainly something that I wasn't. So I guess they were trying to collaborate with various police forces to see what the bigger picture was.
So the judge really fucked you over, so, with that sentence, like.
Yeah, I mean, she was instructed to do it. It was with those kind of things, as you know, there's a lot of bargaining goes on with police, prosecution, all that stuff. So, unbeknownst to you, there's deals going on behind doors.
Yeah. So
but at the time, mate, I would have been seen as, technically at that point I was a single male, youngish lad, so I had no dependencies. So I think they probably made an example out of me, and maybe quite rightly so. I don't know.
So I suppose when you went into prison, were the staff hostile towards you, knowing what you were in prison for?
I think initially, I mean, I did 3 jails in total. One being Shrewsbury, which is featured on the documentary Time. That was my first jail. Second jail was a jail called Sudbury, and the third one, Kirk Levington. Now, I had different experiences, staff-wise, throughout them all. In the first jail, I'll be perfectly honest, mate, the staff were very, very good. Very understanding, very respectful. And when I say respectful, I mean in the sense of I had a few chats with them, and a few of the staff were obviously knew that I had done what I'd done, but also understood the fact that it does happen, and they treat me with respect like any other prisoner, and they didn't go too much in on me. Second jail, I didn't have much to do with the prison officers because it was an open jail. This was after a year and a bit of my sentence. So maybe 14 months into my sentence, I went to Sudbury. Didn't have much to do with the prison officers there, but the very minimal interaction I did have was respectful again. Third jail, completely the opposite. Absolute arseholes. To the point of making, to cut a long story short on that one, mate, you have applications in prison, and you have almost like a mail system. Anything you need, i.e. a dentist appointment, a home visit, any visits booked, you write it on a piece of paper, it goes into a mail system, and the prison approve it. Now, a lot of my stuff was going missing. I was met with animosity, attitude. I remember I mentioned this on Sam's. There's two women who work in a hub centre, and I got kiboshed to Kirk Levington, and it was like bashing my head against the wall. I had visits booked, and I was told basically to go and do one. We know who you are, and it was just bashing my head against the wall constantly, mate. So I tried to stay away from the staff as much as I could. But the first jail, mate, they were very respectful and very helpful, and it is what it is, mate, isn't it?
Yeah. There was, I think it was in your first prison you were in, were you on the front page of the prison newspaper, Inside Times?
So this is 2 days into my prison sentence, and there's a magazine inside prisons called Inside Times, or it used to be, or Converse as well it was called, and it's got information for prisoners, and it's put under prisoners' doors, and it's on the landings for prisoners to read through. It's got things like solicitors in it, information, etc. So I've come out of my cell, I think on, let's call it the third morning, and the prison officers come to get me and said, Lee, Governor such and such would like to see you. Now instantly I'm thinking, bloody hellfire, why does the governor want to see me already? So I just thought it might be a bit of a heads up on, obviously you're a prison officer, etc. And I've gone into the governor's office. The prison officer stayed outside and he said, Lee, I've got a bit of a problem. I need to know what you think about it. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, what's going on? And he's put the paper on the table in front of me, and my mugshot is on the front of Inside Times. And he said, this is the latest copy of Inside Times. What do you think about it? And I said, yeah, really nice picture. It was it was the picture that I got arrested in. I said, yeah, really nice picture. Well done. He said, no. He said, we've got a bit of a security problem. I said, go on then. He said, well, this paper, unfortunately, this morning has been distributed to every cell in the prison. And I looked at him and I went, sorry, what? Well, every prisoner in this jail now knows who you are. And I thought, fucking hell, fine. You don't need that, do you? I'm trying to stay under the radar as a prison officer, and this has been now put onto everyone. So he said, right. Now at that point, I'm thinking, because he said, what do you want to do about it? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel under threat? Are you worried about it? And I thought, well, I might be able to use this to my advantage. So I thought, he said, what do you want us to do about it? And I said, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to put me in a jail up north, because Shrewsbury's 3 hours from where I am, mate. Literally 3 hours. So, and you're supposed to be within 50 minutes of your home address. But because I'm a prison officer, they wouldn't put me anywhere in the northwest, because they said, of links and whatnot. So I said, yeah, put me in a jail in the northwest. And he said, I can't do that. No way will accept you. And I said, well, why are you asking me then? And he said, well, we can go further further down south. And I was like, are you taking a piss? I'm 3 hours from my home. No one's going to come and see me as it is. My mum and dad have got to travel 3 hours to see me. And you're on about sending me further down south because you've put a freaking newspaper through a door. Anyway, I said, listen, this meeting's run its course. And I started to lose the plot at that point, mate. I said, listen, just fucking take me back to the wing. I said, I'm not bothered about it. I said, if anything happens, it's going to be on your head, not mine. So that was that. So yeah, listen, it's one of them. And then obviously the lad that I'd initially gone into the cell with, he said to me the first night I was in there, he said, what are you in for? Because in that jail, mate, there was a hell of a lot of sex offenders. There was a sex offenders wing. Now his question to me first off was, hiya mate, how are you? Are you a fucking nonce? And I was like, no, I'm not. And he went, what are you in for then? I said, just drugs, mate. Don't worry about it, drugs. So anyway, I get back to the cell and he's sat in the cell like that, mate, at the back. And he went, so then, drugs. And I said, well, I'm not lying, am I? I wasn't lying. I'm not a nonce.
Was he cool about you being an ex-prison officer? Was he?
Yeah, he was really nice. I've said it on a couple of podcasts now, Paul. If you're watching this, mate, I don't know if he's all right now. I've not spoken to him since, mate, because I then went on to other jails. Prison's like when you go on holiday, mate. You say you'll keep in contact with everyone. When you go on holiday and you say, oh yeah, we'll come over to Leeds for a night out, and then 2 years have passed and you've not met up. Prison's like that. So if he's out there, Paul, Brummy Paul, thanks, mate. He helps me so much, mate. I got in there the first night. He got the cuppa on. He said, do you want a biscuit? Do you want a brew? obviously my head was up my arse. And he's helped me so much. He got me a cleaning job. I mean, how mad's that I used to be a cleaning, manager, to me then mopping landings. So I've gone from watching lads mopping landings and now I'm doing it myself. Yeah, a really bizarre year, that one.
Were the other prisoners, when it became known what you were in for, did the other prisoners, were they wary of you? Were they hostile? Were they supportive?
Yeah, there was a little bit of hostility, but nothing major. And again, it's all down to this lad who I got put in with. Because he was who he was, and I think he was a well-respected lad. He was, like I said before, about having lads on the wing that were cleaners, that had a bit of clout about them, that had a bit of presence. I think because I was in with him, the other lads on the wing, there was a couple of lads on the wing that were quite, let's face it, they were the boys on the wing, shall we say it. They came in and saw me, and Paul said, "Don't worry about it, etc., etc. He's fine with it. We all know the drill. We know that he was actually doing something for us." It was that mentality of, if it had been a fucking copper or a prison officer that was beating his wife up, it might have been a different story, mate. But I wouldn't say I had an easy ride, but I was given the respect due, I guess, is probably the best way of saying it. And I was told that if I had any issues, speak to a couple of people and it would get ironed out.
Yeah, I suppose what really helped you was you didn't grass and any of the people that you were bringing in.
Exactly. That's the only good thing throughout all this. And I was, when I say I was tempted, the police all the way throughout were offering me all kinds of fucking deals and etc., etc. But they got quickly turned down because I know that that never happens, mate. And I took it on the chin. I did what I did, and I knew that what would stand me. I went into the mode of, shall we say, let's call it criminal mode. The fact that if I'd have opened my mouth at any point, I know the repercussions after would have been far worse than what they were.
Yeah, no, I think in hindsight, you probably did the right thing, I
did, yeah, I did. And I know it might have cost me an extra year or so, but at the end of the day, I'll take that to know that my pride is intact. As in, when I say pride, I don't mean pride, I mean my word. And that'll never come back on me.
So there was one time where your integrity towards your cellmate in one of the prisons cost you a bit.
Yeah. It did, mate. Yeah. When the first jail that I went into, there was at that point, I think, 3 coppers in there and another ex-prison officer. Now, one of the coppers, I decided, when I applied for my open conditions, one of the coppers decided to come with me. 2 of the lads stayed where they were. I mean, for them guys, it's a different kettle of fish. If you're a policeman in prison, what I was doing, if you look at the mentality of it, actually, the lads were quite good with me because they knew that I was doing stuff for the lads. If we look at it at a very simplistic point of view, one of the coppers decided to follow with me. So we get to the open prison. We've done our lay down period. Now I've now got a job in, I knew that when I come out of prison, I needed to do something that work in any kind of governmental institution again. So I thought, I'm going to retrain to be an electrician. So I had the opportunity when I went to an open jail to enroll in an electrician course in Derby College. So I would go out in open prison. I would go out, say, 3 days a week doing an intensive electrical course. And so 2 days a week, I would work in the prison, in the hub, helping prisoners write things like applications, looking through legal papers for maybe lads who didn't understand it. Obviously, I had an understanding, quite a decent understanding of all that stuff. So I would do 2 days a week in the hub. And at the time, the copper was put in the same cell as me. So he had to pad up with someone. So obviously, I'm a little bit worried about that, thinking, because I can kind of go under the radar with who I am. I mix quite well with people, and I can almost change myself to suit a situation. Obviously, when you're in with someone of that job, I was thinking, fucking hellfire, if this comes on top, I'm in shit. But anyway, I just went about my business. He's then at that point started working for the prison, driving the minibus that takes prisoners out to work. I mean, how fucking mad's that? So he would take prisoners into Derby. I would go and do my college course. You go back to the minibus, you go back into the prison. Because it's all about reintegrating people back into communities. So giving people little jobs like that, trusted people. I mean, obviously I was low risk in the sense of, if you look at my offence, yeah, it's a drug offence, but it's very low risk in the sense of, you know, I don't, do you know what I mean, on the radar. And obviously him would have a very risk because he's an ex-copper, albeit a drug conviction. They were convicted of going to drugs raids. And this was the worst thing about it, because they were going to drug raids, having drug dealers off and then keeping the money and keeping the goods. So effectively they were having the cops off and they were having the drug dealers off. So it wasn't too good on his CV, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I'm sat in the cell one day, mate. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, how fucked up is this? I think I was playing FIFA football on the PlayStation 2, because you can have a PlayStation 2 if you behave yourself. I'm sat there at dinner time having a cuppa, finished in the hub, and I've heard a bang, bang, bang on the door. And I've thought, fucking hell, it can't be a prison officer. It's too early for roll call. And the fucking hatch on the windows opens, and it's the two lads who I work in the hub with. Two Scouts lads. And they've said, bang, 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 let us in, let us in. I'm thinking, oh, fucking hellfire, what's going on here? Something not right here. So I've let them in. I've sat on the end of the bed, and they've said, put the kettle on. So I've got the kettle on, and now I'm thinking, well, something's going down here. Right, okay, this is how it is, Lee. We know that you're an ex-prison officer. And I looked at them, because nobody knew in that jail at that point, mate. I'd come from Shrewsbury. I mean, of course they probably did, because you can Google everyone in open prisons, mate. There's more phones in there than fucking anything. And we know you're an ex-prison officer. We know what you're up to, but we're all right. Everybody thinks you're all right, so you're not a problem. I said, right, okay, that's cool. That's a good thing. So I'm thinking, you know, I'm not getting done in. However, the lad that you're in with now is an ex-copper. I said, right, okay. And I knew, and I just played dumb. I said, right, all right. What does that mean? Right, well, I'll tell you what it is. He's an ex-drugs copper, and he's been having fucking people off. Right, okay. Right, tonight, we don't want you to be in this room tonight at 8 o'clock because he's fucking getting it. And I was like, what do you mean getting it? We don't want you on that billet tonight. Make sure you are not here, because we don't want you getting involved, and a few of the lads don't want you getting involved. And I'm now thinking, shit, what do I do? Right, we're going to leave you with it, and then off they pop. So I'm thinking, fuck. Now I know this lad's got family. I know he's got 3 little kids. He's got a wife. I've seen his wife. Now I'm sat in a room now, mate, thinking, this is a key moment now. What do you do, Lee? Do you fucking shut up and witness it? Do you let it happen and watch somebody get fucking that? Or do you be a man and go and sort it out? So I've gone to the prison officer. I mean, it only took 2 minutes to make the decision, mate. I've gone to the prison officer, said, right, I need a word with you in private. I said, I've been given this information. I'm not going to tell you it's off. I'm not going to tell you where it's from. But the lad who's in with me tonight is in grave danger, and I mean danger. So at that point, I was taken to the segregation unit. I was put in the segregation unit because I'd then become technically a problem. And I know they contacted the lad and brought it back into the jail ASAP, sharpish. And we were both put in the segregation unit in Sudbury. So at that point, which is fine, because morally I've done the right thing. But at that point, I'm thinking, just let me go back to my cell, but obviously I can't, because the lads now know that I've technically bubbled, albeit for the right reasons and no names mentioned. But I'm in a segregation unit, and now they're saying that the prison service don't know where they want to send you, because now you're a problem. Not only are you an ex-prison officer, you're now known to be known with an ex-copper, and you're now basically in danger in here, and people talk in the prison service. So we don't know where the prison service is going to send you. So I think we spent 2 or 3 days in that block, mate, just sat in a room, fucking not knowing what was going on with my life. And at that point, I knew that the electrician course that I'd enrolled on, that had gone. I'd fucked it. So by doing the right thing, I'd fucked myself over, which again, I can sit here with you now and say I've done the right thing. And when I say I'm proud of it, I'm not proud of it, but I know that I could never have witnessed anything like that happen to another human, even if it cost me 2 years of my life, which it did, because I then had to re-enroll when I got out of prison to do the same course again, to start it all again. So I put myself 2 years behind by doing it. but I did the right thing, didn't I? That's the only thing I can say.
Another thing as well, I suppose, that kind of annoyed me listening to that story was that your man wasn't too appreciative of the fact that you just saved his life.
It was a normal, yeah, just like a normal procedure. Like, all right, he said to me, where are we going next? And I was like, what? What do you mean, where are we going next? And I just thought, listen, I didn't want any backslaps or anything for it, but it did cost me quite a lot by doing that, time-wise. So
thank you wouldn't have gone amiss, like.
Yeah, just a fucking cheers, mate. I appreciate that. But listen, we sit here now. It's irrelevant now, isn't it?
Yeah. If you could turn back the clock, and knowing how unappreciative of the fact he was that you gave the heads up, would you still have done it?
Fucking hell, mate, that's a tough one, that one. No, it's not. Yeah, no, it's not a tough one, mate. No, of course I would. I wouldn't see anyone hurt. Certainly wouldn't see anyone hurt. So yeah, I'd have done the same again. But yeah, I know where you're coming from with that, and there is a part of me that thinks, fucking hell, you've got to have a selfish. But no, I wouldn't see anyone hurt, mate.
No, and a big kudos for that, like, because that took balls at the time, and obviously your moral compass was tested. But good things come to those who wait, and obviously you're working in the electrical game now, years later.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's been a journey. It's obviously a journey, isn't it? And there's a lot of positivity from it. It's been a fucking horrible road, again, all created by myself. But we've been through this story now for a couple of hours. You now know probably mentally how I've made these stupid decisions, to which have got me to where I am. I mean, it's all me, but you know why I've now maybe made the, sin my ass with this or sin my ass with that, and then it's led to fulfilling it in other areas. Then it's led to accepting a job because I thought I needed to, and it's all on me, mate. But it's an experience, and if somebody can learn from it or prosper from it, then I'm happy for that.
Well, you're honest enough to admit that anyway, so obviously you have to respect that, like, Another example of I suppose the resistance that was against you by prison staff in the last prison you mentioned there was, you're saying that you had to put through requests and they were constantly going missing.
I'll give you a very quick example of this. It's quite funny. So I was met with two women who worked in, so in what I've just described, the hub that I worked in that prison, they actually had two prison staff doing it in the last prison. So you would have to go to them all the time. Now, I first got there, mate, it was in December, because we'd been kiboshed from Sudbury and turned up in the northeast. They didn't even know where they were going to put us until we got in the taxi. And we got told on the taxi on the way up that you're going to the northeast of England. Now, all throughout this, I've never been more than 3 hours from home. Sorry, less than 3 hours from home. So we get to the prison. At that point, I'd had my first home leave booked. So I've been banged up now for, say, 15 months. And I've got the home visit of all home visits. It's the Christmas one. So my mum and dad are expecting the son home. After all what I've told you, now this has happened in Sudbury. I get to Kirk Levington. I go into the hub and say, hiya, how you doing? I'm such and such. And I'm met with, yeah, we know exactly who you are. And I'm thinking, well, right, okay. I've not gone in here with I've not come in giving it the big attitude or I'm an ex-prison officer. I've gone in and said, I've got home leave booked with the prison service. Sudbury, it's a home leave. I just want to make sure that it can go ahead. And the two women have said to me, who's it booked with? I said, I was booked at Sudbury. Well, that's H&P Sudbury. That's not us, is it? And I'm thinking, oh, God. And I just knew straight away what I was up against. This went on for 3 or 4 days, mate, of me going back to visit them to say, look, I really need your help here. I need to know if my home visit's going ahead so I can let family know. And all I was met with was, we've told you this, we've told you to go away. You'll have to do your lay down period here. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I'm here because I've technically helped someone. I haven't caused anyone any issue. I haven't caused any harm. Why can't you just grant me my home leave? So I had to go through like a few steps and eventually found a governor pal to fucking have a look at it for me. And I was granted the home leave. When I've come back from that, all the applications I was putting in were going missing. I was never getting any reply back. So I'd started to put phony applications in, just fucking stupid stuff like, I need to go to the toilet, or I need to do this, or whatever. Nothing was coming back through my door. So we've now fast forwarded to February, yeah? So I've told you that's happened at Christmas. I've now got 2 months of this shit. February comes, and I've written a phony application to a girl who worked in education on the 14th of February. Now, obviously, Ireland knows that that's the day of love, eh? So I've written the application to a girl who works in education. Hello, let's say, for instance, her name was, I don't know, pick a name, Rachel. Hi, Rachel,
Valentine.
It's Lee. Yeah, hope you're okay. Happy Valentine's Day. Lots of love. Can't wait to see you, Lee. Fucking hell. That application went in, I swear, mate, at 11 o'clock in the morning. Now, I've not sent an application for 2 months. I'm laid on my bed like this at dinner time, and the fucking door comes off its hinges, yeah? 2 prison officers. Right, get up. The governor wants to see you. So I'm like, look, right, okay, what's this about? Got into the governor. The governor sat behind his desk, 2 big screws coming behind me. Showed me the application that I'd written at 11 o'clock. What the fucking hell do you call this? And I said, I'm sorry, what's that? You know, I was at that point, mate. I was playing them at the wrong game. I'd had enough of it. I was 4 months away from coming home. I just had enough of bullshit games. And I looked at it and I went, what's that? And I looked at it and I said, is that an application? And the governor said, you know full well what it is. I said, well, it's funny because I've been putting them in for the last 2 months and I've not seen any coming back. And I've just put this one in 2 hours ago and all of a sudden you've got it in your hand. I was that cocky with it because I'd had enough, mate. And he's like, who the fuck do you think you are? Are you having an inappropriate relationship with my staff? And I said, no, I'm not. I've never met the girl in my life. And he said then, what's all this about? What are you trying to bring about here? And I said, well, your staff for the last few months and during my time here have been less than professional. All I've asked for is a fair crack, like any other prisoner's got, a fair crack at things. And I said, your fucking staff have been hiding applications. And he said, well, how do you know that? And I said, because I've had nothing back. Anyway, I swear to you, he said, right, you're going to have to leave this with me. He said, if you pull any more stunts like this, I'm sending you to fucking home house, which is like a closed conditions again. And I said to him, I said, look, I'm not bothered about going back to closed conditions. You've got nothing up for me in here anyway. I was in the jail, mate. I rotted away for the last 6 months of my sentence. I rotted, just sat in a cell because there was nothing they could offer me. So he said, you're going to have to leave it with me. I swear to you, within 2 days, every application that I've written in the past few months, I pretty much got filtered through my door. So again, staff in the first jail, fantastic, supportive, understanding, professional. Staff in the last jail, absolute arseholes. But again, that's what you get, isn't it? You get good officers, bad officers, there's judgmental people, and there's humble people. It's just unfortunate that I was met with that up there, and they unfortunately had quite a lot of clout because they were in the job that they were doing. You know, they had the operations of the prison. They were the heart of the prisoner stroke staff relationship and bond. And for me, if they're watching, for me, very unprofessional. But each to their own.
So I suppose moving on, I suppose the next chapter of the journey after that is adapting to life outside. Yeah. And remember you saying that you actually found the adjusting period after prison to be worse than prison itself.
I do, and I think that's probably the case for a lot of people. Prison, I guess for some people, prison can be a positive experience, as in it may take them away from an environment that is less than pleasant. So therefore, that might be a positive experience. For me personally, the actual prison experience was negative because I've got quite an active mind, and for someone with my background, it's not as if I was a career criminal. I'd found myself in a situation, and for me, prison was negative. I think I could have been dealt with in other ways, and I think this is a bone of conversation. Maybe they could have used me, or the law system could have used me in another way, whether it be building fucking schools in Africa, or, you know, something a little bit more productive than just being behind a door. For some people, it's a positive thing, mate. Being behind a door is an improvement from some people's situation. I get that. For me, absolutely not. And I think coming out of prison, I mean, don't get me wrong, I needed to be punished, of course I did, but I think as a society, I think we can punish people in more productive ways for society rather than just fucking behind a door for 23 hours a day. It's a very draconian way of thinking about things, but that's probably the big talking point for another day, innit, mate? That can be a big podcast. But coming out of prison for me was horrific, as in I didn't know how to get back into life. I didn't know what my purpose was, as in I'd done the jobs that I've told you I've done. I've then told you that I was trying to retrain to be an electrician. I've come out 2 years behind, and I just, for the first 6 months, it was good. I always remember one of the coppers ringing me and he said, Lee, you know, you might struggle, I think, when you come out. They'd got out a year before me, 6 months before me, so they've gone through this already. Mm-hmm. And he said, Lee, if you ever want to ring me, just ring me, because I know it will get tough at some point. And I remember thinking to myself, are you fucking mad? I'm getting my life back together. Why the fuck would I be ringing anyone struggling? Obviously, you knew what was coming. I just didn't. I couldn't find a purpose, mate. And I got some little jobs like working in bars, and again, from my past, from my career, from my adrenaline kind of filled jobs, I just found myself thinking, what the fuck am I doing in life? I mean, eternally grateful the fact that I got a job working behind a bar, but for me, it's kind of falling off step 10 to falling off step 1. For someone who's been in and out of prison all their life, is probably accustomed to it. It's maybe just falling off step 9 to 8. For me, I just couldn't deal with the gulf in life of what I had before and what I didn't have when I come out. And that was always going to be the case, but I just couldn't deal with it. Couldn't deal with it, mate.
I suppose to cope with the way you're feeling, you use alcohol, you used cocaine.
Cocaine massively.
As a coping mechanism.
All I wanted to do was, because I couldn't deal with what I'd done, I couldn't deal with what I'd done, as in career-wise, to the people around me, all these emotions of kind of feeling elation when you come out, to then feeling empty, to thinking, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life now? I'm a 32-year-old man. I can't get into anything, like say governmental. Everywhere wants CRB checks. I couldn't see a way of getting back to where I thought I should be. And then come the alcohol, the cocaine, and after that, mate, when them two get involved together, there's only one winner, unfortunately. And it certainly isn't, a fruitful career. So I just ended up sitting in a room this went on for a few years, mate, of doing jobs of just to pay my way in a week, to then go and buy beer, to then go and buy coke, to sit in a room with a bag of cocaine, to sit in a room with a bottle of whiskey. And I couldn't find any way back. I didn't have enough strength within me, because I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But all I knew, that when I drunk or when I took drugs, that I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I suppose the shame, you're probably feeling a bit of shame as well in being around your local area and stuff. And at the time,
the guilt. I think the guilt is the biggest one. The guilt when the door's shut at night and the guilt kicks in. I would be very good at bumbling my way through a day, and people would say, "Oh, you're always happy, you're always smiley." It was all bullshit, mate. It was just a mask, big mask.
Another challenge, I suppose, to adapting to the outside world again after prison that you found frustrating was getting back into the workforce when you were willing to work and you had a number of obstacles put in your way.
I did. We're probably talking now. We're not talking that long ago. I'm going to talk about 2 instances here. Now, one was only 4 years ago. No, in fact, no, one was 5 years ago. We'll talk about BT first. So I'd gone through trying to get back into work, trying to get a job. The job centre suggested that I go for a job at BT. Now, I thought, with the electrical background, I want to be a BT engineer. So at the time, they weren't taking on for engineers, but there's a call centre in Lancaster, and it was recommended to me, if you can get into the call centre, do 6 months in there, so you're in the crowd, and then transfer out to the engineers, then that would be a viable route to being what I want to be, which was a BT engineer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone to the job centre. I've disclosed the crime, to which was still on my record. I've then gone to, they have a recruitment company working for them called Manpower. I've disclosed it to them, gone for the interview. They said, yeah, we really like what you're about. We want to invite you onto a training course. It'll be 8 weeks of training. You will then be onto the floor, just on telesales, mate. I'm only talking about telesales for the BT, but it was a case of getting into BT so then I could transfer internally. So I've done the training course. So 3 points here that I want to make. I've disclosed it to the job centre. I've disclosed my conviction to Manpower, who are a recruiting agency for BT. Then you get a full contract with BT. And I've disclosed it to BT on their form. So I've gone about the training centre. I've done the 6 to 8 week course, can't remember. And they put you onto the telesales floor, which they call going live. Now, when you go live, within the first week, I think I'd sold more than anyone sold in BT for, you know, someone going into that job. So you've disclosed it 3 times. Firstly, the job centre. Secondly, the recruitment centre that recruits for BT. And thirdly, with BT themselves. So 3 times here, I've disclosed what I should be doing. I've done things the right way. The first week, I've sold the most that anybody's ever sold as a new recruit. The second week, I'm called into the office on the Monday morning. Now, I'm expecting a back slap and well done, here's your bonus, etc. In actual fact, mate, it was the very opposite. I got sat down by the woman from Manpower and she said, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to go and meet the BT boss. He sat me down and said, we've made a mistake. We can't take on anyone with an unspent conviction. It's our error. However, because I was only on a temp contract with this recruitment company, it was basically, there's your orders, crack on, kid. Now, at what part of that, for anyone, I'm not talking about my situation, if you're trying to get back into work, you've told the truth 3 times, you've gone through an 8 week training course, you've done very well in your job, so you're capable of doing the job, but yet you're met with that. What part of that is going to, you know, inspire people to get back into work? Or, you know, where do we sit with that one? How would you, mentally as a person after that, I mean, I'm talking about if this has happened to someone else, mentally, how do you think that person feels then?
Soul destroying.
Absolutely fucking soul destroying.
Yeah.
Then what do you then turn to? If you're met with that, I'm not saying it's an excuse, but what's the first thing you go and do after that? You go fucking straight to the pub, don't you? And you think, how am I supposed to get back into this world when yes, I've done wrong. Yes, I've told the truth about it. Yes, I've shown that I've got capabilities of doing the job, but then somebody's fucked up and now I haven't got a job. So it's tough. That's the tough part about it. If you're met with stuff like that, you've got to have some resilience about it to keep pushing forward after something like that, especially with an experience like we've spoke about. To then be met with that in civilian life, you think it's hard not to have that mentality of the world is against me, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you can't. You've just got to keep on. At some point, you keep knocking on that many doors, one will open maybe.
There's also been instances as well, Lee, where people have gone out of their way to make employers know about your past.
Yeah, we'll skip one. I did have another. We'll skip right to this one, which was only 2 months ago, mate. We do a lot of work for the company that I work for now. We do a lot of work in a local university. And in that university is a lot of ex-prison staff, and a lot of prison staff used to work in the establishment that I did. So naturally, I'm met with them on a regular occurrence. Recently, after podcast 1 with Sam, which I would say was 4 or 5 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So after podcast 1, somebody has got in contact with my employers. Now, obviously, everything's legit with my employers, you know, regards CRB checks. They know everything about me. They've been supportive throughout, and I've thanked them many a times for it. Somebody has contacted my employer and said, do you know you're employing an ex-criminal and a person who works at the university who deals drugs to youngsters? So it's obviously come from a source of maybe prison background, but they've got in contact with my work, whether it be malicious, whether it be genuine, nobody knows. But I would guess that it would be someone who's worked in the prison service, then got in contact with the university, who then got in contact with my work saying, do you know about this? And this is, mate, I mean, we're talking now 2021. This first happened in 2009. So again, you know, the message there is shit follows you. Don't bother doing it. It's not worth it.
Was there an example of a time where someone's dad or someone's son ratted you out or something?
So this is the middle part. So in the middle of all this, I applied for a job up in about 25 miles away from my home, electrical company who do power server cabinets. So I'm thinking, you know, 25 miles from home, no one's going to know who I am. You know, I'll be fairly under the radar. And started working there on a temporary contract, doing really well. And if I get it right, so I'd done maybe 2 months there, 3 months, temporary contract. Now at this point, I've become disillusioned with putting things legitimately on forms, like I've just said. So the BT thing had happened. I've put on this form, I haven't put any of my convictions because I thought I'll be a smart ass and I'll play the system. I'll not put it on the form. I got taken on straight away, doing really well. Got dragged into the office one morning by the manager. Now I'm thinking again, full-time contract, here we go. And he's turned as white as a sheet and he said, look, I'm really sorry to have to say this, but have you got any convictions that you've not disclosed? And I looked at him and I thought, why are you asking me that? And he said, and he showed me an article of me, you know, when I was arrested. He showed me the newspaper article that somebody had printed off a computer. I mean, how fucked up is this? Somebody printed it off a computer, sent it to him, and he said, look, have you put this on your form? And I said, Simon, I haven't put it on the form. You know, obviously, you know the reason now why I hadn't, because I thought, if the system's going to play me, I need to crack on the way I do. And I've gone home that night, obviously, you know, upset again, angry again. I worked with a lad who lived not far from me, and he said, I'll find out what's gone on. Maybe 3 or 4 days later, they've come to me and they've said, we now know what's gone on. So someone who worked in the building that I was working in had recognised me. His father was a prison officer at Lancaster Farms, and he'd gone home to his dad that night and said, is this the lad who nearly got you arrested, Dad? Because apparently, unbeknownst to me, 2 or 3 of them got tugged in the morning that I got tugged in, because I don't know if they were part of it. They certainly weren't part of anything that I was doing. So he'd taken it upon him to basically go to the company and say, look, you're employing an ex-criminal, da, 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 da. Again, released from the contract as it was a temporary contract. So again, just another kick in the balls.
Look, I suppose with everything that was going on and how bad you were feeling and, you know, the frustration of getting work,
yeah,
things were at a low ebb for you, and that manifested itself in a very dark moment.
Yeah, that was probably, dare I say, I think it was probably it was before that job. You know, obviously things at that point, things had spiraled out of control with, you know, alcohol and drugs. And I think with, you know, like we've just spoke about there, mate, there was no real way back in my mind. There was no real way back into this society or whatever. Still weighing heavily with conviction wise, and it just ended up in, you know, I think a full day on the alcohol and the cocaine. And I think one day I just thought, you know, not good, mate, in many ways. And I'm glad that it didn't end up the way that I intended it to end up. But again, really, that's probably the poignant point in all this, the fact that if you rewind 10 years previous, accepting to do something for 400 quid and then ended up, you know, in a kitchen trying to take your own life, then, you know, that should be the message, really, shouldn't it? I think, you know, trying to get back on the job ladder, abusing myself with, you know, various substances, and I just didn't see a way back on it, mate. So I'd had enough of it. But thankfully, it didn't turn out that way.
I remember being horrified hearing the reaction when you woke up in hospital to the.
Oh,
can you really tell us about that?
Unbelievable. So you've gone through that night and you wake up in the morning, face down on a bed. You turn round and people are saying, you know, Mr. Davies Lee, and you turn round and there's an old boy there, maybe 60, 65. Now, at that point, for someone who's been in that situation, you think the last thing I expected to do was to see daylight. Then you turn round and some old boy is saying, what is this all about? what are you doing this for? Is this some kind of cry for help? And you think, oh, fuck off, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I could have got out of the bed physically, I'd probably knocked him out. I mean, we'd have been back in trouble again, wouldn't we? But no, again, we talk about being professional, about the two women in the glass jail. Again, I mean, what kind of professionalism is that?
Yeah. No empathy whatsoever. You can imagine someone who's in that job meant to empathy with people. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I mean, them guys see this thing day in day out, don't? So they probably see repeat offenders, shall we say, in that line of work. But for someone like me who's no history of anything like that, so why would you meet someone with that reaction?
Yeah,
bizarre. I hope he's not in the job anyway. I hope he's not in the job now.
Yeah. So moving on from that, things are obviously a lot better for you now. What kind of made you turn the corner? What kind of steps did you take?
Just I think a lot of it is personal forgiveness, mate, isn't it? Something like that. Like I've said, we've talked about the wheres and what fors. There's a lot of internal pressure, all caused by myself. And I think at some point I'd gone down every bottle, gone down every drug, gone down everything that you can imagine. And there was no answers at the end of it. There isn't any answers at the end of it. You can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is fucking who I am. So I think obviously a lot of support mainly from family. I've lost a lot of friends along the way through it. But yeah, there comes a point where you just get fed up of being fed up. You've got to explore other things. I was always quite a social lad, involved in a lot of things. I think at some point you go down every avenue, don't you, just to try and find some kind of answer. And I think at some point, at the end of the day, it just ends up with you.
Did you find counselling kind of helped you as well?
More so after, yeah. Maybe not at the time. I wasn't fully engaged at the time, but I think afterwards it has, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, like, you obviously have a lot to offer society, man. Like, you're like, you made a mistake over a year period. You've paid your debt to society. You're obviously working in a skilled profession now in the electrical world. You know what I mean? Like, you've moved on from that. You're big enough to speak on shows like this about your experiences, and you're trying to persuade other people that are in the same position not to go down to make the choices you made. So,
exactly. It doesn't get anywhere. It might get you a quick fix for, I mean, what's 500 quid really? If you think about it, in 12 years, it doesn't, like I've said to you earlier on in the cast, doesn't matter what kind of money you offer someone. If you say it's going to cost you 12 years of your life, what figure do you put on that? It's just stupidity. And that's the same with anyone, any drug dealing or any quick fix or any crime. Realistically, if you look at it down the line, there's not many people that prosper from it, is there?
No.
Not long term, anyway.
Well, look, massive respect is due to you, and kudos for what I just said there. So it's a fair play to you for speaking about it. Like, you know what I mean. So, before we wrap it up, it was just a very timely, pardon the pun, show that came out recently called Time.
Yeah.
With Sean Bean and Stephen Graham, and it's a 3-part documentary in BBC. For anyone who hasn't seen it, it's very, very worthwhile watching, and it's quite authentic as well, from what I've heard. And obviously, you know better than this. So
yeah, we've been from both sides. I actually watched it with my mum and dad. I don't think I've ever watched. I mean, look, when I watch them kind of programs, it's hard for me to watch them because a lot of it is absolute tripe. But the Time, it struck a lot of chords with me personally, from both sides of it. And obviously he's born it. For anybody who hasn't seen it, he's a prison officer who's born into corruption. But you will never find a closer account or a more realistic account than probably watching that. And the strange thing is, it was filmed in the jail that I talk about earlier on in this one, in Shrewsbury. So Sean Bean is like literally 3 cells away from me. But anybody who wants to watch any prison stuff, that is the closest you're going to get to an experience from both sides of the bars.
Yeah. Like, it must have, was it the character in it is kind of coerced into bringing in packages into the prison because his son is being threatened. But I suppose the I'd imagine you could empathize big time with the emotions that he was going through, picking up the package in the car park,
Absolutely.
going into the prison with the stuff, you know.
When you look at the portrayal of Stephen Gray's portrayal in it, he's a family man with a house, 3-bedroomed house and a car on the drive, family car, which is, let's face it, 9 out of 10 prison officers. The good portrayal is that every time you see him on a wing, you always see him surrounded by prisoners. And that is a good portrayal of the pressure and the numbers game in there, because you've always got 30 people around you. It's you on your own and 30 people around you. The things where they go to the phones, the pressure for the phones, the showers, etc., again, is all authentic. It is on. Yeah, I recommend watching it to anyone.
Yeah. The bullying that Sean Bean character Sean Bean played experience as well is realistic enough. Would you say that there are characters like that throw sugar and boiling water over?
It is, because in there it's a great portrayal, because he's a teacher, isn't he? And let's face it, anybody can be in prison. And there is a lot of that in there. There are a lot of lads, I mean, all this, this big gang stuff and all that jazz. Yeah, it is in there, but there are lads in there, or are people in there that just fall and foul of the law once. They might be a teacher, they might be, work for the council or whatever. They're not these type of people. They're not, they're not like me, or they're not like anybody else who can hold their own in situations like that. But yeah, it was good. It was, I'm not going to lie, mate, there was a few crazy emotions going on. But I was also proud in the way, the fact that they actually portrayed it like that. Realistic.
Yeah, and it came out as well just around the time that we first started speaking as well. So it was very timely, coincidental, and worked very well, So you're at a very good point in your life.
Yeah, we're doing all right. We're getting, every day is a work in progress, isn't it? But as far as where we've gone from where we're talking about previous, everything is good. Happier, starting to engage in more things, starting to get back into the football. It's just trying to do things right.
What do you think the future holds? What's your plan and you'd like to do? Or
just a period of just to celebrate a period of calm, just a period of normality. At weekends I do my stuff, as with the animals and whatnot. Just keep on doing what I'm doing, mate. Nothing major. It's just nice to have a period of calm and and try and get people back in your life.
Lee, thanks a million for coming on the show. It's been great hearing your story again, getting your angle. As I said earlier, you've paid your debt. Hopefully the bad times are behind you now. With onwards and upwards, keep going with your job. You obviously have inspired a lot of people from the Sam podcast from Biddy Moore as well. You know what I mean? And it's invaluable. The advice.
That's given me a good kick as well. The people's reaction have been phenomenal. I think that was probably a big concern, maybe in my mind, over the last 10 years, about what people would think, what people thought. But even doing these podcasts, mate, look at the percentages wise. I'm going to say, let's say 95% of people have been nothing but love, nothing but support. So again, anybody watching that, thank you.
Closing words, any prison officer who has been manipulated at the minute and is bringing in phones and packages to prisons, what's your word for him?
First and foremost, it's only going to end in misery for many sides, for you and your family. My advice to you is go straight to the gate, put your keys in, and don't ever look back. Just stop doing it. You're going to hurt people. Most importantly, you're going to hurt yourself.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Parlay with Porridge podcast. Good night. God bless.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Cheers.